Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the first live and Lee show of the new season. Delighted to be joined by the one and only Paddy Donovan. Paddy, how are you this evening?
All good, John. Thanks very much. Good to be back.
Good to be back in your pristine Limerick jersey.
I take it out every now and again when Limerick win the odd hurling match, so it's getting worn though. I'm going to have to get a new one, I think.
Yes, and am I right in saying this is Limerick's first two in a row since the 1930s?
Yeah, um, we never won three out of four. Up to 2017, we only had seven in total, and the previous one going back to 1973. So some special things have kind of happened from 2000 and maybe 7 and 8, 9, 10, 10 years, 11 years ago. But present team seems to have closed the gap on the big three who have won probably nearly 100 All Irelands. Between them, there's Cork, Tip, and Kilkenny. But looks like we have not only matched those teams now in terms of strength, speed, agility, tactics. Every every possible way is trying to be found by the other three counties to stop us. And it just hasn't happened in three out of the last 4 years. With a little bit of luck, it could have been four in a row. And like it's nice to be part of a conversation where even Kilkenny people are coming up to you comparing the present Limerick team to the teams of '06 and '08, which was regarded as the greatest hurling teams. So yeah, it's nice to be in the conversation anyway.
It's
But
nice to be in the
next year is going
convers.
to be interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're at the top of a cycle. I predict another at least two All Irelands for this Limerick side. You're that good.
Um, I think our goalkeeper is 32.
Nicky Quaid.
Graham Mulcahy, I think, is shoving 30. But from there down, um, the players are the next oldest is 28. But there's a bunch of players between 27 down to 23. Now, it's possible they might be there maybe for 5 years. But there's minors and under 21s coming through at the other end. Like Kiely is 23. Um, there's three or four really good players, Coughlin, O'Neill, and there's an O'Brien on the minor team. Like Coughlin came on in a league game. He's a Leaving Cert student. Uh, Hannon was injured and went off as centre back. Kyle Hayes moved over and he scored 3 points. Now, Leaving Cert student to come in and do that at the level that senior hurling is at. The pipeline is still producing them. Um, and like, if you go back to Harty Cups, Fitzgibbon Cup wins, Mary I, UL, and the development squads, and a bit of McManus's money, I suppose, coming in at that level. Um, it's hard to see any team that comes at Limerick are coming at a steamroller, basically the same kind of a steamroller that was produced in Kilkenny for 10 or 12 years when their nursery, St. Kieran's, and other schools were really doing well in Kilkenny, like the pipeline. Cody was changing the team by three or four players every year. I think you might see that beginning to happen in Limerick next year and the year after.
Yeah, it just goes to underline how important schools and colleges hurling is in the development of these players. So, in your mind, is there any question mark about John Kiely not getting another term?
I think it's looking like I'd be surprised if he wasn't there. Probably a 2 year term, um, because there is a little bit of a changeover, change of the guard when Graham Mulcahy possibly retires. The goalie will probably retire. Um, there will probably be a couple of positional changes and for rotation of players. I don't think there's a better man than John Kiely to do that rotation. He knows the players so well. But there's actually a leashman down in Limerick. He's a school teacher down there who is the Limerick current 20 and under manager, Dermot Mullins. Big history of the GA behind him here in Laois. And he's beginning to show his influence. Like all those wins in all Skullreach and the Crescent, where he is, he's bringing players into the under 21 section. So uh, I'd like to see him matching up maybe with Kiely for 2 years, maybe when he's finished with the present under 21s, and maybe then when he come back here and himself and Cheddar might do something together here in Laois.
Yes, absolutely. That would be great. And surely there's a case for a combined Laois Colleges team.
Yeah, they have enough of Gael's teams put together in hurling and football anyway to confuse a nation up here in Laois. So combining school teams, but certainly there probably is, but putting together schools teams that play with one another with schools and expecting them to go out into the championship the following week and scalp against one another. I'm not sure that's not the best idea either, I suppose. But look, I think there is development officers coming through in this partnership agreement that the clubs will have from next year on. The county board part funding development officers for clubs, and the clubs part funding and maybe a small grant from GA headquarters. The word on the ground is there could be up to 20 of those in
Great,
clubs for next year. They
great.
certainly will have an influence because that's where the Dubs started with football in Ireland, was development officers. That's where Limerick started, was development officers in the school. Like Art School Reach is down in North Circular Road, half a mile from Thomond Park, where John Hayes, the Claw, Paul O'Connell, Foley, all these guys were the icons down there.
Yes.
The development officers got into the schools and started to change the culture. So hopefully those development officers will work out in Laois.
Oh, I mean, it's a positive move. Positive
Yeah,
move.
but I'd like to see those development officers though being Laois people. Um, we lose a lot of talent to other counties. Um, like we lost Eddie Brennan, he's in Dublin now. Tommy Fitz, I think, has a club over is working with a club in Galway, and like Dermot Mullins is down in Limerick. Um, I don't know how many others are out there, um, but we don't seem to bring them back. Kilkenny always had a policy of getting guys back, jobs in Glanbia, jobs in schools, and then the coaching roles followed. Laois doesn't seem to have that culture. I can only think of a couple maybe that are around the place. Guys like Pat Ridgely and uh, probably Rowe in Rathdowney and John Sullivan maybe in Clonaslee, Ash Whelan. Those guys are around
Yes.
the place all right, but those development officers, if they were from Laois, I think, and were around both day and night and evening with our clubs, would have a big influence in hurling in Laois.
Well, absolutely. You mentioned Pat and the others. It would be great to have, for example, Pat involved as a coaching coordinator to make sure that
Yeah,
the 20 coaches in place, we're actually getting bang for our buck, and we're seeing a return, and we're seeing better coached kids coming through.
yeah, but if you have a star hurler, we'll say from Westmeath coming down coaching in the schools here, I'm not sure it's the same as maybe Ross King being a development officer, or a Podge Delaney, for example, who are icons, and when they arrive and when they speak, people are listening, if you know what I mean. So, like, if you have a hurling coach maybe from Kerry coming up here as a development officer, it's kind of not the same thing in comparison to the guys that are involved in we'll say, the Limerick development squads. There's a senior hurler at the 13 and under development squad in the county, the 15 and under, up through minor and under 21. Every single team has a former star Limerick hurler who has won something or at least played at the highest level, and they're respected. I'm not so sure the development officers in Laois really kind of garner that respect. They do on the football side, because some of those guys are Laois stars in the first place before they started.
Yeah, I mean, basically the point you're making is you need local heroes involved in these squads. And switching over now to the Laois Senior Hurling Championship, off camera, you tipped Rathdowney-Erill.
Yeah, well, I think they got off to a good start, but
What, they escaped against Abbey Leaks?
I don't know enough to go into the detail of who might win what, but I can go into a little bit about the resources that they have available to them. Now, the only 60 by 30 handball court in the county happens to be in Rathdowney, and they put a new floor. It's an outdoor court, but they put a new floor in this year, and they ran a competition for minors. They play a version of racquetball, but with hurleys and slitters down there. So they have been at that for a couple of months now, and I would probably make them favourites. But then at the bottom end of the scale, coming in from the intermediate side, the other handball court in the county, in the hurling side of the county, is in Cullehill, and the Harps are beginning to show their teeth across. They won, I think, the Junior A last year. There was 3 or 4 handballers on that team. They won the Senior A. Podge Delaney was on that team. There was probably 5 or 6 players with a handball background. There was 2 Dohenys on it. James Duggan, Pádraig Walsh. The goalkeepers are beginning to show. Actually, the Junior A goalkeeper and the Senior A goalkeeper are both handballers. On the Camogie side, juvenile, I think they're the 2020 15 and under winners, and I think on that team there's 5 handballers, and the Harps are in the 15 and under A hurling final. They're due to play Mount Rath. Again, a scatter of handballers on that team, and there's an even better team coming at 13 and A. There's a couple of young fellas on that team that are special. I think there's a son of Noel Delaney, his Podge's first cousin, handball background again. But that's an awful lot of medals to go to one corner of the county, to one club. And you have to ask yourself, if you were in any other club, what are they doing down there in the Harps that's different to what we're doing? And I've gone through this with several of the coaches in the Harps. It's down to footwork, eye-hand coordination, catching the ball, reading the game, peripheral vision. Look, is it hurling or handball we're talking about now, if you know what I mean? That they learn those skills in the court as children, and then they go playing hurling. It's a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
The Harps have momentum. They have 2 teams, adult teams, lots of players competing for places on that senior team. Traditionally, they would have come up and gone straight back down again. There would have been relegation playoffs to go back down. This team's not going back down because the younger players are there. The older players will be replaced again. There'll be a transition, but I can see them staying senior for 3 or 4 years anyway.
Right. So you're not saying who's going to win, but you're going to say the potential winners of the Laois Senior Hurling Championship would have a scattering of handballers.
Well, I picked Rathdowney-Erill as the team to beat, probably.
Right. So you jumped off the ditch.
And down at the bottom end of it, there's always relegations down into the lower divisions, and in those playoffs. And in those playoffs, I'm tipping the Harps to stay up convincingly. Great.
Now our population, we're neck and neck with Newbridge. We're well past Naas. Really, the only one in the area, apart from Carlow, would be Kilkenny City. Kilkenny City, roughly on 32,000. We're on 27,000, and catching them very, very quickly. I would say within 2 or 3 years, we'll have passed them out because we seem to be building houses by the dozen in Portlaoise. We're lacking the facilities. I can only speak, for example, I'm living in Kilminchy, and the facilities, apart from one basketball court and one outdoor 5-a-side soccer court, pitch, whatever you want to call it, that's it.
Yeah, and you pick up the paper this week and there's another planning application for another 120 or so houses. There'll be a development fee from all of those houses. What that gets spent on, the water, sewerage, all the services are already right beside where they're going to be built. It's hard to know what facilities should be in Portlaoise, but obviously a sports hall would be a starting point. And I know every time I'm with you, I'm talking about the sports hall. Do you want me to go on my rant?
We'll rant away, Paddy.
But there is progress being made. The subject is not going away. Our county councillors and our TD are on top of pressing the issue to the top of the agenda all the time. I suppose it's probably 6 months since a consultant was appointed to liaise with all the sports groups, with all the charity groups in town, to do a full survey of what was needed, a survey of what sites were available. Obviously, the 26 acres in Terrells was top of the list, but it appears that only housing is going in there, social housing, and outdoor sports facilities, they're needed up near the two schools where there's 1,400 students. Certainly, all weather pitches, outdoor basketball courts, all very much needed. But from a briefing, I understand that the councillors got kind of in early August from the county council, from the director of services, that it appears some of the councillors anyway are of the opinion there's no sports hall going into St. Mary's, but that an alternative site
into Tyrrell's
kind of has to be looked at.
Into Tyrrell's, Paddy.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but then 2 weeks later you pick up the Leinster Express and there's other politicians they're making scoring points about the housing being too high, all valid points about social and affordable housing. But if you look at the map that was produced, there's actually no sports hall on that map, despite references in the article welcoming a sports hall in Tyrrell. So a little bit of a debate as to whether there is or there isn't. But I heard the words alternative site being mentioned, so I made a call to the council. And the alternative sites are ones that kind of we came up with. But one alternative site probably that already has a management company in place that might have the room for a small sports hall rather than a big one is probably behind the existing leisure centre. To build it, you'd probably have to remove the existing all-weather courts, the AstroTurf down there that are very busy. Now, if another site was found for them, possibly in Tyrrell's, well then, to me, it makes perfect sense to put a sports hall in down there, and handball court, place for table tennis, badminton, the wheelchair sports. Sean Fleming, our TD, was pushing the idea of a sports complex out at the rugby club, which probably makes sense from a point of view that it's on the motorway, it's near Supermax, it's near the centre of activity with yourself there in the publications in Laois. That's a private site owned by the rugby club. Anything that goes in there would probably come 5 years quicker than if the county council are going to develop it. So there is an argument for the sports groups kind of getting in behind the rugby club. But it's still in the ether, but at least it's not going off the agenda, which is the main thing.
Well, the rugby
councillors are on top of this all the time.
Yeah, well, the rugby club option would be good. I think would be good for all parties concerned.
Yeah, well, Panthers Basketball can't develop really beyond where they are at the moment. They've 38 teams, one sports hall here. I see them outdoors all summer, but from what I read, they have a professional player coming in. I think he's Australian.
Correct.
To be on a wage when they play with him, when he plays at the top level in the National League. He'll have to be funded. So obviously when he comes and the team starts to perform, and people start standing up looking at these guys as icons, that's only going to attract a 39 team, a 40 team. They have mothers and others playing, they have wheelchairs, they have all kinds of initiatives going. It's hard to see that the bubble is going to burst at some stage, and they need to get going with a hall fairly quick.
Yeah. The town is just crying out for it, and that club in particular is crying out for it. Absolutely. Gary
OReilly, who has done the town tremendously proud of what he has achieved. He's a wheelchair sportsman who started at basketball before he got into doing all that he has achieved. And yet when he comes back, if he wanted to do something other than racing, where would he go? What does he do? He has to go to Clonaslee. It kind of doesn't make sense to have somebody as iconic as that having to get into a car travelling 15, 20 miles to take up a winter sport.
Yeah.
It just sounds...
No, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough for all the generations in the town and future generations. We need it sorted. We need extra facilities, better facilities, and hopefully, if we keep banging the drum on this, we'll get them. we'll get them. But we have to keep the public campaign going on that. But yeah, Paddy, here's hoping. That would be a lovely Christmas present now if we got the news that a new sports hall would be built. That would be great. That's all I want on my Christmas list this year.
At least our TD who's in the government, Sean Fleming, and the 4 or 5 town county councillors. I know this is all about County Laois really, but our councillors in Portlaoise are on top of this. They're not going. Some of them are from sporting backgrounds, like Zach Toohey's father is in there. Tommy Fitzgerald's mother is in there. Like, these are people with sports backgrounds, and they can already see that there is a problem here, and they're not the kind of people that will let a problem kind of grow. At every meeting they'll keep pushing.
Well, that's
sometimes politicians come in for a lot of abuse that they're not moving things along. Things really do work slowly when you come to public consultations on trying to get these kinds of premises up and going.
Yeah, but I know it's great to hear our local councillors in the town are putting in the effort, because they all have children and grandchildren. They want this as much as everyone else. So yeah, it would be a great Christmas present now if we could speed up that process, get it over the line. But Paddy, as always, it's great to have you on. Next time, will you cover up that jersey, please? But anyway, no, it's great to have you on. Hopefully, we'll have you on now most weeks if you're available, and we'll have other guests lined up in the coming weeks as well. And we've a couple of little innovations coming up as well. I have to say thank you. We've had 2 producers trying to get the new studio bedded in this evening, Matt Kerry and Nathan Hayes. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Nathan. To our host here in Vision 85, to Eamon Callahan. Thanks, Eamon, for having us. And it's a superb facility. We're going to be using it a lot. And of course, it's open for other groups making videos and podcasts and programming to rent it and use the space. It's here for the community. So on that positive note, thanks to Paddy, and thanks to our viewers, and stay well and stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.